Hi everyone, my name is Cara Noble. I am the National Relationship Manager for the Cancer Association of South Africa, and I'm so grateful to be spending this afternoon with everyone. We have two fantastic speakers joining us for our Men's Health Roundtable. It is November, and it's important that we are talking with men and having discussions about men's health and more specifically, men's cancers. I've got two guests with me today. I've got Michele Vanzaghi, who is a testicular cancer survivor, as well as David Lucas, who is a prostate cancer survivor. And first of all, I'd just like to thank these gentlemen so much for being brave enough to actually come onto social media and share their journeys in the hope to actually touch other men out there that are possibly going through the same thing or have been there, and just making them feel like they are not alone. So I think first we're going to start with Michele. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Tell us a bit more about yourself.
Right, so my name is Michele Vanzaghi, a little bit of a strange name, I know, so essentially I'm a young medical professional, I'm a young doctor, I'm busy with my internship in Pietermaritzburg, and little did I know that 2020 would hold not only COVID, but a massive life-changing diagnosis for me. So I'm a doctor myself, and I think it's safe to say that I diagnosed myself with testicular cancer early in this year. So early January, I mean, the most noticeable thing about testicular cancer is that it's asymptomatic. And I essentially had just noticed that I have a small lump on my left testicle. And essentially this year has spiraled out of control, and I've become a cancer survivor all in 1 year, a cancer diagnosis and a cancer survivor all in 1 year. I'm a doctor myself, so it's been a massive introspection for me to learn about how being a patient feels and how important it is to give healthcare. And that's just my story in summary, but I'm sure we'll touch on a little bit more later.
No, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think cancer already is such a difficult diagnosis. But we know as the Cancer Association the impact that lockdown had on cancer patients, because like, for example, a lot of the rules and regulations and guidelines that we encourage cancer patients to follow during lockdown has actually been our normal practice. For example, when you have chemotherapy on treatment, don't go out your house, don't have visitors, beware of people with flu, have hand sanitizer in your bag, wash your hands regularly. These kind of the craziness that's taken over the world has been what we've been practicing and sharing with cancer patients for years. And so it's already hard in normal everyday life prior to COVID having cancer with just everything going on. And I actually can't imagine how difficult it must have been in COVID, actually having this diagnosis and just being obviously at a much higher risk of contracting COVID. What was that like for you?
Yeah, so I think, just communicating with a lot of my friends that experienced lockdown from a normal perspective, that was already quite a challenge. So for me, I was really strict in terms of everything that you've just mentioned. I think the only person I saw for about 4 months was my mom. I honestly didn't leave my house, and I took massive precautions against getting COVID, because obviously it's such a novel disease, and we know so little about it, and we know so little about how it affects immune-compromised people. So for me, that part was really tough. I mean, it was a lot of anxiety and stress in terms of sanitizing everything and completely isolating. But I think in another sense, it was also so important and so special for me as a medical professional. I think our lives are, like, from the get-go, from school through varsity, through med school, we're driving and we're pushing towards goals, and we're really busy and always working. It was such an amazing thing to just step back and to have, completely isolated from all other people. So like all the other confounding things were removed, and it was just me and my close family, obviously my mom. But I think I really learned a lot from that experience, and from being isolated and being alone and introspecting and doing the things that I wanted to do and the things that I loved, was really special to me.
I think that is what always amazes me about cancer patients is I think the effect that cancer has on you, in a way, it forces you to see so much good. And I think that's why a lot of cancer patients actually say and share that cancer made them think differently. And the person they are afterwards, they actually wouldn't change that, because they just see the world and laugh and family. I know that this is something that David's also quite passionate about, but you see things in a different light once you've been affected by cancer. I know as a social worker myself, It really is all about the coping. And I think, the disease, obviously physically what's happening to you is so overwhelming, but in your mind and coping with the fact that you're not in control of the situation, you do not know what your treatment outcome will be. Do you know what I mean? I think it's very overwhelming. And a lot of people don't even realize that oncology was actually one of the few services that actually was made essential that never stopped. I know from cancer's perspective, we have 12 care home facilities around the country where we offer accommodation to patients on treatment, especially living from faraway places, so they can actually have access to their treatments at public or private facilities. And we did not close for one day. The oncology centers did not stop. So cancer patients were having treatment throughout lockdown continuously. And many people don't actually know that. So they're still having their vital surgeries, etc. So it was a very difficult time for a cancer patient on active treatment during that period. And I think the wonderful thing is that through what you just said, there is still light, there is still good, there is just something that you've taken away from this experience. And yeah, you've just turned on the positive, which I think is really amazing, because I always say to people, it's so much easier to stay in the dark and to stay in that hard place, and it's really difficult and you're not happy and your life is not how it was meant to be and should be. And it's actually harder to pick yourself up and get in the light and pull yourself through. So that's really amazing. I think that's something really great you went through, considering the exceptionally difficult times of COVID. I think it's something you can be really proud of.
Thanks, Cara. No, I mean, I definitely learned more than I could ever imagine from the entire situation. I mean, it's actually unreal to think about that you're going through this cancer diagnosis. And at the same time, there's a global pandemic that's adding to the whole sort of situation. I think it was quite a unique experience. And like you say, I wouldn't have changed it. I mean, there was so much light. I think another point that's pretty amazing is that I think that even though I was isolated, I was removed from my normal society. I think that the rest of the world was kind of isolating with me. And I saw that as quite an amazing thing. I've written a few pieces about how incredible it actually was that I was going through this abnormal experience, but at the same time, all my friends who sort of weren't in the same sort of physical state as me were all going through isolation as well, essentially. Opened so many incredible opportunities for connecting with people virtually. And I mean, maybe it's selfish to say so, but I was removed, but I wasn't removed alone. So that was also incredible.
Yeah, I agree. It makes just that little bit easier.
Yeah.
So thank you. And now, David, let's chat a bit to you, David. You've been a cancer volunteer for many years. Unfortunately, we love roping you into these things where you can share your story and talk about things. And so, David, just give the audience a bit of information about you and your journey.
Yes, Cara, and thank you so much, Cara, that the opportunity that I have to keep on talking about my journey. And I don't believe that I've got an exceptional journey, but I think there's that challenge in the journey that makes you see life in a different perspective. I'm a young 63-year-old. I was diagnosed in 2011, and here I am still alive and kicking. And I can only say that, it was purely because of early detection. And then secondly, the family ties that I have, that the support that I have from my wife, my 4 children, my 4 grandchildren, people around me. And, I'm a very fortunate situation that I can speak out about it. And I believe that cancer, we should actually look at it not in the fears that we had many years ago, that people used to all just die of it. We are all going to die. But I promise you that there is life after being diagnosed. I know that there are some people that have spoken to me who I believe I spoke to, and including my oncologist, my own oncologist, my family friend who's a doctor, my own GP. People are not always aware, and even though they are medically trained, sometimes they're not always aware that it's a life-changing experience, because like Michele said early on, you speak to other people you don't realize. And Michele, I've got a message for you that you must please remember. As your age with testicular cancer, you must always remember, when you speak to these young guys, tell them, at my age, I'm 63, Uncle David to most of them. Uncle David said they can play with their balls. Playing with their balls.
I'm well aware.
Yes.
Well, that brings me to I think one of the most difficult discussions that comes, and I think also a lot of the resistance why men don't feel comfortable talking about prostate and testicular, because I think there's just such a public perception that, for an example, if you do have one of these diagnoses, obviously your sexuality is threatened, but there are definitely cases where it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to get to that stage. But the challenge is that men don't talk. And I'd love to pose this question, just because David, part of it, and then Michele to you. David, why do you think men don't talk about, for example, prostate cancer, like around a bra? Like, would this be a topical conversation? Like, hey, have you done your annual PSA test? So just for example, your annual PSA test is a test you recommend men to have over 45. Like, is this like men's bra talk?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think men have that idea that we are brought up with cowboys don't cry. And we don't speak about the emotional stuff. We don't want to speak about sexual stuff unless we're bragging about it. In any case, I like bragging about it because it hasn't done anything to me. My answer is always to guys is, guys, have it checked out early. If it's done early, you have a good chance of it not affecting your sexual relations. And it did, I can't say that. I must actually, I keep on saying to my wife, she must also, when I speak to people, she must also come and answer. Because I think I'm actually better now than what I was. So, yeah, I mean, it's not something that you're going to be worried about. It's a natural thing. Guys, at some stage, we are going to lose that ability to keep on having it. You can't be 85 and still think that you're still the youngster around there. But if you have it tested early, let's go for it. And I think this is the problem that we have, particularly in terms of prostate cancer. Men think that it will be the invasive finger. It doesn't have to be that, guys. It starts off with a little prick. And I don't think any of us should be crying and saying that we can't stand blood. Just a little pin prick. End of the story, your blood is tested. And there you know whether it's necessary for further medical intervention.
I agree, David. And I think one of the challenges, the stigma, specifically more on prostate cancer, is that I've got prostate cancer, I can never have sex again, and I'm no longer a man. And I think it's so difficult that men have to have those hectic emotions and feelings because there's so much that can be done. But the problem is that with men not being open, like it must be, you are quite candid with the way you speak. But I'm telling you now, a lot of men would not speak that candidly on a public platform about sexuality. And I think it's a guy's worst fear. And I think what we found, and especially from like an emotional perspective, is that when men are coming to us, for example, they're on treatment, they're unable to work for that period, so they can't provide for their family, which is obviously like a very big part of what they need to do in their role in life. And now they, for a period, and the fear of long term, they can't be sexually active and be with their partners. So we do know that like emotionally, like guys go through a lot of stress and pressure, and it literally drives them crazy. And a lot of our prostate cancer patients and men actually isolate, which is so sad because they just don't feel comfortable to talk about this. And I think that's why I'm so grateful that, I chose you on purpose, David, to join us for this, because you are so candid and you are so honest, and you would be that person that would be able to share.
Cara, yes, I understand perfectly. It is a very big part of a man's life. But, we most of us have a partner, a wife, just a partner, a friend. Yeah, and I think most of them are when it's females, and even if you're in a homosexual relationship, you will find that the partners are quite keen to accept that I would rather have you around than not having you around. I'd rather have you around, even if there's no sexual relations. I'd rather have you being there for me and with me and somebody I can care for than having a scenario where I am without that partner. And that, I think, is worse. The support system is there. And most people will, if they really look at it, they'll find that cancer brings out that support system for them. So, yes, it is a very awkward one in terms of saying, you know what, I'm losing probably a great part of my life. I think females go through that big fear when they have to have a breast removed. And yes, am I a woman? You know what? It's the same thing with men. You are me, you are you, and the person that's with you cares about you and would much rather have you alive. Please go out, have yourself tested. We will, in 90% of the chances, will be able to have those relations, sexual relations, if it is found early enough.
So yeah, I think that's a very important message. And obviously there are two different ways of initially testing for prostate cancer. The one is what I mentioned earlier. It's called a PSA test. It's a prostate-specific antigen test. That can be done by drawing blood. It's very simple. It's 2-3 minutes, not even, and it goes for testing. And what's happening today is that is the first port of call. Is getting that blood test every year. If there is something more that needs to be investigated, then your GP will then go and do it's called a digital rectal examination with the finger. If you are over 45, we do recommend you to please go and get a test done. It's so important. No one likes to do these things. Women don't like mammograms or pap smears either, I promise you. But we do know that it's good for us and it's something that we need to do. Also important to remember, if prostate cancer is in your family, especially your dad, your uncle, brother, grandpa, etc., you need to realize you are at a higher risk compared to like the average Joe on the street. So it really is important, guys, that you do your regular checks. You can come to any cancer care center around the country, book an appointment with one of our nurses. You can call us on 0800 22 6622 to make an appointment. And yeah, I think it's some really wise words that David said. Unfortunately, David, I will disagree with one thing you did say. There are actually a lot of women that do leave. And we actually are really aware of this. But we have men that are just devastated. And I think that that's really sad and hard. And I think you hope when you do love someone, you take them for the whole package, like you mentioned. But we also have to be sensitive to the fact that for some men, they aren't in that position where they have so much support. I think listening to you and Michele, just sharing how you have such great support systems and people walk with you and were part of your journey, I don't think you realize how blessed you both were. At the same time, though, it's your communication skills. I can see you guys are both really good communicators or better communicators, because a lot of men would not be able to say out loud, I'm not coping, or this is really hard, because they must be men and they must be strong and get on with it, you know. And so we find that when men do communicate more and tell their loved ones that I need you, I'm really struggling, this is hard for me, people will come running with open arms. Like, for example, my dad had prostate cancer 5 years ago, and it was so hard for him to be sick and be unwell. It was such a big thing for him. And we're like, Dad, you don't have to be so brave. It's allowed to be hard for you. Like, you're allowed to say this isn't easy. You don't always have to be so brave and carry this. And when he realized that everyone who was trying to knock on that door, that he was just turning away, everyone came running in, the floodgates just opened, and family and friends were there and supporting him. But he just felt he had to do it on his own. And I think it's such a common way of thinking. Michele, can you relate to something like that?
Yeah, so I think for me, from the day I was diagnosed, I never had this emotional experience that I felt I can't tell people about this thing. I never felt that I needed to mask my diagnosis because it was a testicle. I think that just stems from a really good family support system and really open communication with all of my friends. But it's been super interesting to see how people respond to when you tell them you've been diagnosed with testicular cancer. I mean, within the different spectrums of age, I mean, I think telling my parents or my father, I could see in his face it's almost like this bougie topic that people don't want to talk about because it refers to male genital reproductive sexual health.
Yeah.
And I don't know, random interactions with hairdressers or anyone who ask me about my story or why I'm doing this or why I'm doing that. It was really interesting to see the initial shock on people's face when you tell them, oh, I've had a testicle removed. I mean, I think initially it's first wow, I mean, that's huge. That's removing a part of sort of your genetic material. I mean, what does that mean for kids? And I think maybe because I'm a little bit more, because of my medical background, sort of I know that we can reproduce with one gonad. It doesn't literally, it means nothing in terms of our sexuality to lose a testicle. So maybe that helped me in my initial responses, but it has been really interesting to see how people respond, but also to see how open people are to listening and understanding when you explain to them what it means. And it's interesting, people initially are scared to ask questions, but because of my nature, I love to talk about this thing and it's my therapy to talk about it. I offer information and people are really interested in hearing more about the story and what this means for a young guy. So yeah, it's been interesting to see how open people are actually to talk about the topic when probed and when a little bit more.
I think it's also important to mention that there is also support and help out there for men. From a cancer perspective, we do have our telephonic counseling service. You can call us for a free consultation on 0800 22 6622. This is free of charge and we will call you back at our own cost, something less that men have to worry about. This is for any cancer patient, but we are definitely also there for prostate cancer patients and testicular cancer patients and any man out there that's having a diagnosis. We can also assist with family members, helping them cope with a diagnosis. Sometimes a cancer diagnosis is also really hard on your loved ones and family members, and they could also benefit from chatting to someone. We offer this in 7 languages, which is English, isiZulu, isiXhosa, Afrikaans, Siswati, Setswana. And this really is an opportunity for us to reach as many South Africans, especially those that have cancer, are on active treatment, and are still being really good. They're self-isolating and taking care of themselves, especially during these COVID times. We also do have social workers at our cancer care centers that you can book an appointment with to get seen, if that would suit you better. And we have our online support groups with Cancer Champions of Hope. It's a really great group. It's a closed group of cancer survivors. And also we have something called Cancer Caring for the Carer. And that really is carers coming together to support and uplift each other through the challenging times of loving someone that has cancer. So that's really what we can do as cancer to support you and guide you. Also have amazing materials and resources about your diagnosis and how to cope with cancer online at www.cansa.org.za. And Michele, would you like to share with us about something that you've been doing and you've started?
Yeah, I think I also learned the absolute crucial part of community during this whole process. And maybe coming from a younger generation, social media was sort of what I jumped to first. So I have started a Facebook and Instagram page that's titled @grabbed_by_the_balls. So grabbed by the balls on Facebook and Instagram. And I've just written some reflective pieces, mainly just highlighting that cancer is not a terminal diagnosis. And I'm open to any messaging or anyone asking for advice about examination and screening and treatment and diagnosis and journeys and how it works. And they're welcome to get in touch with me on either of those platforms. And I'll be happy to share my story and share any medical and sort of personal stories that could help you.
And following on from what David has just mentioned to us, let us go through to Cancer's prostate cancer awareness video. Enjoy, guys.
Hi, it's toilet. Sign here.
This is the toilet. Ready for your blood test?
Can I just relate as short as possible, a story that I can relate in my time? A family member, gastroenterologist of note, retired now. He's been in medical practice for last 30, 40 odd years. And I was talking just openly about I've got prostate cancer and I'm going to go for my testing again and all sorts of things. And he didn't say a word. About a week later, he phoned me back and said, you know what, David, thank you so much for talking so openly about it. because it made me see my own situation in a different light. Yes, I have been diagnosed with prostate cancer, and I've been going in this silent, closed environment for so long, trying to carry it all by myself. I've now learned to speak about it. And, through his journey, we could relate. And that's why I say, please speak out about it. Don't keep it to yourself.
Definitely, David. I think we could just get more men talking, then men don't have to feel so alone with a diagnosis. And if it's prostate or testicular, and obviously testicular is affecting younger guys, mainly from 16 to 35. But it's hard overall. We just need more guys to keep talking. That, I think there is so much support out there, and there are men that are beating cancer. And I think it's also great to see that, you can see David Lucas, you can see Michele, you can see these men that are going on with their careers and their lives and their families, and they haven't let cancer get them down. They've literally got on top of it. They're living good lives, and there's just so much that can be done. It doesn't have to be the end of the road, because we also have experiences with patients being diagnosed and never coming back. The fear, the shock, the anxiety, they just don't come back for treatments, or they're just so scared. And I just want, you guys, I'm putting on a pedestal today to say these are like walking live proof that people can definitely beat cancer. So Michele, do you have a message for the guys out there? I think especially the young guys. What messages do you have out? The younger guys do tend to like their balls, but what message do you have specifically about early detection, and like what should a young guy from 18 to 35 be doing?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think me and David are on opposite spectrums. I think if you tell guys they need to go get the finger, they run away, and if you tell them they want to play with their ball, they'll be quite willing. But for me, I think what I learned about this from this entire experience was, I think we're all a little bit guarded in our invincibility of youth. I think that because we're young, especially in terms of cancer and the age category that are high risk for testicular cancer, is that we neglect to do something about our fears. And even with guys that are screening, I think I'd like to take it a step further and to guys that feel any abnormalities. I mean, if we can, so testicular examination, self-screening should happen once a month after you get out of the shower, in front of the mirror. You just have to feel each testicle with both hands for any abnormalities, any lumps, any irregularities in the skin, in the feeling of the testicle, and to feel the size that it's still the same. And then just to look at the skin and see if there are any changes. I mean, it takes 2 minutes. That's actually not that hard to spread awareness. But the issue comes with thereafter, if you feel something abnormal. I think a lot of people live in denial. They think it's something that will just go away on its own. And they fear going to a urologist because no one wants to go and have essentially their private, the most private part of their body examined by another person. And it is uncomfortable, and it is scary. I mean, even as someone who does it myself very regularly, it was terrifying for me to go to the urologist. But I think the message that I've learned is that we are youth, we are young people, but we're not invincible. And honestly, that 2 seconds of discomfort and fear and anxiety is tenfold, millionfold better than living in fear and anxiety and denial of what the truth could be. And even if the truth is not what you wanted to hear, there are ways of managing it. And if you present early, you go early, there are ways to get around this. Taking on and tackling your problems is so much better than living in fear of what could be. And I've really become an advocate for that, is to go out, take charge of your disease, or not even disease, but just take action, and spread awareness. Talk about it with your friends. There's nothing wrong with being abnormal or sick. It's not something that we chose. Testicular cancer is a cancer that happens to people with no risk factors. So essentially, it should be a disease that's attached to zero stigma because there is nothing that you've done to deserve this. And I think if people are aware of that, and they know that it's not something that they've done, it's not linked to STDs or anything, it's just a disease that happens because we're humans. And if people are aware of that, we could reduce stigma and get people examining themselves and presenting earlier, and we could be saving a lot of lives. And I wish I could just get that message out as strongly as possible.
Thank you so much, Michele. I think that's really a great message for young guys. And I think let's encourage all men out there, if something doesn't feel right, if something has changed. If you're a younger guy, you have a lump on your testicle, something didn't feel right, or it's a bit bigger than the other one, change of the skin, guys, please go and see someone. You need to go and get that checked out. The same with men. If you're going and you are going to the bathroom like many times a night, back pain, groin pain, there are just so many. You don't have to keep on feeling like that. The fear of the unknown should not be taking over the will for you to get better and get some support and assistance. I also do want to make clear that even if you're not in early stage cancer, there is still so much hope. Men are kicking cancer's butt at stage 4 and still living really, really good lives. Please do not let a staging determine your outcome. A staging is there to assist the doctors and professionals and oncologists and their team to assist you and treat you as best they can. It is not a determinant on your outcome of treatment and your journey. So please do not let that define you, but just take care of yourselves, men. We need you as well. We need you in our families, in our homes, all the brothers, husbands, fathers, uncles, sons. We need all of you in our lives. And we encourage you to please take better care of yourselves. Take time to have your annual checks, your GP. We know they aren't fun, but you need to have them. Younger guys, we know you like your balls anyway, so we'll just really encourage you to check them out. As Michele said, it just takes 2 minutes. So yeah, from my side, from Cara from Cancer, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you all learned something. And any last words from Michele and David?
David, I leave it to you.
Right. Go out there. Early detection saves lives. It's a known fact, and I'm an example of that. Thank you.
So a huge thank you to everyone for joining us today. We really hope you took something away, that you learned something. For those of you that possibly are not cancer patients, and then for those men out there, we really hope you feel encouraged and inspired to know that there are men that are surviving cancer and living really their best lives. So just to remind you again, if you'd like more information about cancer services and information about different kinds of cancer, you can get hold of us at www.cancer.org.za. And if you would like that opportunity for counselling, for the offering of the telephonic counselling service by Cancer, you can call us on 0800 22 6622. Gentlemen, you do not have to be alone. So we're going to end off now with another award-winning video of cancer, our testimonials. Please enjoy, guys. Do your monthly checks, and please take care of yourselves. We need you. Keep well, everyone. Bye.
Just tell us your story and what happened to you.
It's going on TV.
And in the web.
On the internet. Okay. All right. Whatever, man. Okay. How's it? I'm Daryl's right testicle. Look, I didn't always used to hang out on my own. My whole life, Lefty was with me. So like one day I noticed that something wasn't quite right. Lefty was looking a bit out of shape, and for some reason Daryl didn't want to talk about it. I kept saying like, geez, Daryl, you know something's wrong, bro. Speak up, man. Until eventually one day, I remember he was having a beer with his mate Steve. He finally brings it up, and Steve's like, bro, why do you keep this to yourself for so long? He told him to get it checked out right away. So very next day, makes an appointment to see the doctor, and the doc broke the news to us gently. Growth was cancer, and best thing we could do was to say our goodbyes to Lefty. Good news is I'm still here, so is Daryl. So is that cool?
Yeah, thanks.
The bit with, is that right?
Yeah, well, we can do another one unless you...
Look, whatever, bro, I'm happy to hang out.